Assassin's Creed, directed by Justin Kurzel. He also directed a Macbeth, which also stars Michael Fassbender, and I heard a lot of good things about that film, Macbeth. A film that I've yet to see, but heard it's pretty good. So I was hoping this could possibly be the first adaptation of a game into a film that could possibly be great, or even good would have sufficed. There's two things that I want to start off with saying. One is an apology. This review is late. This film in the UK came out, I think it was the 1st of January, and now we come in where we're almost into February now, so I apologise for that. Second, let me start with saying, I honestly can say, my personal opinion, I really don't think Assassin's Creed is as bad a film as many people have made it out to be. I really don't. So the film stars Michael Fassbender as the title's main character, Callum Lynch, in the real world, that is, and Aguilera de Nera, I think that's how you say the name. And this is when he's the assassin from the past, or the Animus. Now I bet you're wondering, Animus, what's he on about? You know, what's Animus? Now that pretty much sums up how I feel audiences in general will feel about this movie, unless you played the games, which I've done myself. I'm a big fan of the Assassin's Creed games. So unless you've played those games and are well versed into the Assassin's Creed lore and mythology, then I think a lot of people are going to be a little bit lost when it comes to certain aspects of this film. So let me just dive straight back to Fassbender a moment. I actually really liked his performance in this film. He really did look like he was passionate about the material and that he was giving it his best. Even through the script in places was a little patchy and cringy. The script wasn't the best, but I thought he was really good, and I think he did his best with what he had. And to me, his performance came across like he was really passionate about this role and this story. Same goes for everyone else, pretty much. Marianne Cotillard, I think that's how you say her surname. Sorry again. But she plays Dr. Sophia Ricken. And her performance was not out of this world. It wasn't incredible or Oscar-worthy or anything like that. You know, it wasn't fantastic. But it was serviceable. And it was okay. She looked like she cared at least. And same goes for Jeremy Irons as her father. I really liked his performance, and again, it looked like he cared. Overall, I thought the performances in this film were pretty decent, with Fassbender's being the standout. I thought he was really, really good, and I felt his performance added a certain groundedness and realism to the film. Something that I feel this film really needed to sort of work. Now, going back to people not really going to understand or know what's going on, unless they played the games, of course, or read the books even. For me, the narrative is one of the film's biggest faults. The narrative really doesn't run that smoothly, and it's a little convoluted and muddled. And I think a lot of that comes down to the pacing. The pacing in this film is all over the place. There's moments in this film where the pacing is so fast, like you're rushing on to these event after event, and it feels like almost as if there are scenes missing, as if scenes have just been taken out. And it was very it didn't sort of take me out of the film, but for me there was something definitely missing when it came to certain scenes, because I felt like the pacing was way too fast, and then all of a sudden the pacing would slow down. So you're traveling 70 miles per hour, and then all of a sudden you screech to about 20 miles per hour. And there are moments in this film where the pacing is actually quite slow. Slow leads me into another aspect of this film where I think people will or would be put off by or with Assassin's Creed. And I think a lot of people will find this film very slow in places and boring. Now, for me personally, I didn't find it boring. Even though I do recognise it's a tad slow in places, this did not affect my viewing pleasure. but I could see other people being put off by it. In one way, maybe the narrative was so clunky or, so sort of bumpy, which is, it could be down to the fact that they really tried to squeeze this story into 1 hour and 30 minutes, because I think that's how long the film was. It was quite a short film, and I think maybe that could be one of the reasons to why I feel the narrative is so muddled and convoluted, because you've got these scenes that sort of happen very, very quickly, events happen very quickly, and then all of a sudden the film screeches and it slows. And maybe there was a lot cut out of this film to sort of really fit it into that 1 hour and 30 minute runtime. Now, why didn't this put me off Assassin's Creed? Because I felt this was actually quite a nice film to look at overall. I thought it was quite a beautiful film to look at in a way. Along with the look of the film and the performances from the cast, I really felt like this was really not that bad a film as a lot of people were making it out to be. I thought it was actually decently well made. It was, it was quite, a decently well made film. To a degree or to a certain point, because this is almost certainly not a perfect or a great film, but I felt it was well made, and the cinematography really stood out for me. I loved the look and the feel of the movie. It felt real and authentic. Am I the only one that felt that? Am I the only one that thinks this? Let me know in the comments below. Now, authentic leads me into another point. I really liked the fact they used foreign language and we had subtitles instead of it all being in English. And I'm talking about when we go back into the past now, and they're obviously in a foreign country now. Your typical Hollywood film would just have it all in English, but in this they actually made the effort to speak a foreign language and for us to actually have subtitles instead. And for me, that added a lot of sort of it made it feel more grounded and real, and it made the film feel a little bit more authentic. Everything felt real, dirty and gritty. Justin Kurzel did a great job in making this film, this story, as muddled as it is, actually feel real, even when it comes down to the Animus itself. That's probably the most sort of science fiction element of the film, even though the Animus, it's slightly different in design and in how it works to how it looks and functions in the game. I really liked what they did with it. It was quite cool, actually. I did like the look of it, but there were questionable aspects of this design and how it worked. A lot of that has been mentioned in previous other people's reviews, but overall I liked it. Okay, the action scenes. Now, the action scenes, I feel, is probably the best thing to come out of this film. They're very exciting. They choreographed very well, and they were a lot of fun. Now, my biggest problem with the action scenes, and it's the way they were edited. The way they were cut. They cut by using multiple shots of the same scene, but from different angles. And they just throwing them all at you. For example, you'll get this one shot of an action scene, but they decided that they shoot it from different angles, and you'll get one good angle, and then all of a sudden it will switch you to another angle. And it's like, oh well, it looked okay where it was. You don't need to see this fight scene from so many different bloody angles. And I don't like the way action scenes are edited in that. I don't like it when action scenes are edited in that way. This also includes close-ups. There were too many close-ups, in fact, when they were fighting, and you can't see what's going on or happening. I think maybe a lot of that was to try and keep this film a 12A, which I will go on, I'll go into more detail about a little bit later on in this review. So yeah, close-ups, doing in fight scenes, to me, it just throws you out a little, and I'm really not a big fan of, I'm really not a big fan of how these very fun action scenes were actually put together. A nice simple wide shot works perfect for me. None of this close up multiple angles of an action scene. A lot of action movies today seem to be doing this, and it really annoys me. It sort of, for me, it cheapens the movie. It makes the movie look a little bit tacky. Maybe that's just me. I just like a good old fashioned wide shot of a very nice, well choreographed action scene. You have the odd different angle, of course, but this, you had about 10 different angles of the same shot within 10 to 20 seconds, and that gets a little bit, it does throw you out a little bit. But like I said, the action scenes were actually quite fun. I just don't really agree with how they were edited and put together. So let's go back to the 12A rating for a moment. I feel like a lot of the sudden cutting in this film, especially during the action scenes, was down to trying to hide or justify, it's trying to hide the lack of gore and blood. End of the day, this film is based off a series of R-rated games, or as they are in the UK, they certified 18. Now, yet this film lacks all of the blood and gore that those games had, and I mean, it's something for me, well, something to me, which is obviously hidden. There are moments in this film that are a tad violent, but lack that, that blood or gore, which for me just made the film and story feel a little less real and believable. I mean, at the end, there are moments, it's not a spoiler, because this is a spoiler-free review, but there are, something happens, someone gets stabbed in the neck with a knife, right? You're going to be pumping out the blood. You don't see hardly any blood in this film after such actions. And there was a moment where it almost made me laugh, because I was like, that's not quite believable, because there would be an awful lot more blood. For me, it's all just about having gore and blood for the sake of having blood and gore, but it does add a certain realism and, makes you believe into the film and the characters and the story more, if it is that little bit more real. And overall, as I previously said, the film does achieve that to a point. But when it comes to the action and the actual violence, this film needed to be R-rated. It needed to be an 18 film. So yeah, I'm really not a big fan of the fact that they sort of toned this film down to a 12A. I'm not the type of person who's like, oh, you've got to have a lot of blood and gore, because I do, in certain aspects or certain cases, that can actually sort of cheapen a film if it doesn't, serve the story. And I felt like it really, this film really needed it to sort of serve the story. So for me, this film did have a lot of positives, but those positives did have its problems also. Like I mentioned with the action scenes, the story, the narrative. I mean, it could have had, much better structure, run more smoothly without trying to cram so much in. But the film itself looked really nice. It was technically a well-made film as far as I'm concerned. It just suffered when it came to telling a story. I mean, for me, that was its biggest problem, which is the structure of the narrative. The pacing was just way off, and really makes me wonder, was there much cut out? The climax, if you could actually call it a climax. The third act, a bit of a disappointment for me. Very, very flat. It's at this point where I'm left wondering what's going on. And this is coming from someone who's played the games and, who's well versed with the Assassin's Creed mythology. But in a way, the climax, the third act, it felt a little tacked on, like a reshoot almost. There are also moments where characters make decisions in this third act, questionable decisions or actions, because, it's completely out of character. Characters do things in that third act that's just completely out of character. The climax for me was a massive letdown. It just stood out for the wrong reasons. It felt very flat. It wasn't that exciting. It was rather dull. But the first two acts of this film, even though the pacing was a little all over the place, I actually really liked and enjoyed. I feel it was the narrative and the third act that really let this film down. Okay, and the action scenes could have done without all those different angles, shots and close-ups shots, but they were still fun. I loved the look of the film. It felt real and authentic. I mean, even down to the costumes and the language, the use of foreign language, and the cinematography was nice. Some people Some people would argue that it was a dull-looking film. I actually kind of liked the look of the film. It suited the story, and it suited the era that partly this film is based in, and that could lead into another little gripe that I had with the film, and that it didn't really spend as much time in the past, as the assassin as I would have liked it to. I mean, I think this film focused too much in the current time, in reality, you could say. And I think the film spent too much time in that part of the story, and that was a little bit disappointing as well. I just want to quickly mention the soundtrack too. I also really liked the soundtrack in this film. I thought it was really nice. There's moments where it reminded me of Brad Fiedel's. Sorry, again, I can't say his surname, but the man who scored the Terminator film, the first Terminator film, and the second, of course. But the score in this reminded me of that first Terminator film. And there are moments in which it's very elegant and epic. It was a nice balance of both. In fact, I really liked it. It was also very immersive. I felt like it helped immerse you into what was a very rocky story narrative. Now, I'm very aware of this. This might be one of the very few positive reviews of Assassin's Creed, and I'm really not ashamed of that. I have acknowledged this film has problems. This film does have problems. But overall, I did actually like and enjoy this film. I really did enjoy the film. I really feel like the film has not deserved the negative reception it's received. And I feel it's actually one of the better movie adaptations of a game. I would probably rate this slightly better than the disappointing Warcraft even. But because of the problems I've mentioned, for example, the pacing and narrative, I feel that's why people will be put off this film. But technically, I don't think it's that bad a film. I don't think Assassin's Creed is for everyone. I do think a lot of people are, they have been put off by it. I mean, it can be a bit slow and dull in places, but I actually really liked it. I enjoyed it, and I don't think it's that bad a film, and that is why I will be giving Assassin's Creed a B-. Thanks again for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you like what you see, please hit subscribe and follow me on my journey. And also, don't forget to leave a comment below. Did you like Assassin's Creed? Did you hate it? Is there anything you disagree with regarding my views or opinions of this film? Let me know below. And again, thanks so much for watching, and I'll be seeing you guys soon.